Okay, thank you. So here we are. It's still Friday, January 14th, and this is still Senate Government Operations. And we are still talking about pensions. And I'm going to turn this over to Beth in a minute here, but during the break, Senator Collmore asked me, so how kind of did this happen that we got here? And so I just am going to spend 2 minutes telling you. So we took a ton, and I see Molly and Andrew, and I don't know if Eric is still with us or not, but we took a ton of testimony at the beginning, tons and tons of stuff from Beth and Chris and everybody, so that we all understood what the problem was. So then when we got to the point of starting to look for, and it took a while for us all to begin to trust each other. That was the key issue here. But when we got to the point where we all had a real grasp of what the issue was and what we were trying to solve, then what happened is that each of the three groups, the VTA, the NEA, and the VSEA, we met in small groups, and they kind of threw out ideas. Well, what if we did this, and what if we did this, and this, and this? Would this bring us to the point where we need to be? So we took those ideas and sent them to the actuaries with the questions. Does this get us where we need to be? They would come back and they would say, nope, doesn't do it. So then those three groups would meet again and say, well, what if we adjusted this and did this and this instead? We did that 3 times. And in the end, the actuarial results verified where we were with the proposals. Does that answer your question, Senator Collmore? So it was the proposals that came from the groups themselves, and then the actuaries would, we had a contract with Siegel as an actuary to do it, and then they would come back to us with the information, and then it would happen again. So we kept refining it.
Yeah, it does. And I can only speak for the Senate side, but I was curious. I was going to ask before, but it's Friday afternoon. It's getting late anyway. Whether the members from the NEA and the VSEA and the troopers were kind of like the Senate, where, to be fair, I don't think anybody was jumping up and down to get on the task force. It became a question of who stepped back from the volunteer line fast enough so that somebody else got appointed to it. But it's amazing, as is true so often in life, what might appear to be very disparate individuals can come together, and if they're willing to do what you say that they did, and they first of all trust each other, and then earnestly and honestly work together, it's amazing what can come out of that. And I'm guessing that that's what it was, because I'm not sure that anybody from the legislature was, oh boy, I hope I get appointed to that task force.
And I will say that I think that the 3 unions could not have made better appointments. They were, every one of the 6 of them worked really hard and earnestly, and was willing to engage in the conversation and get to where we needed to get to. So I think that the appointments could not have been better.
Thank you for answering that.
Andrew, I think you see Andrew has his hand up.
And just a quick point that Kate, Molly, and we interviewed to be on the task force with Vermont NEA, so it was not a matter of who didn't step back fast enough.
Okay.
All 3 of us were very willing and committed to step up.
Oh my
I
Lord,
hope I didn't mischaracterize. Yeah, I hope I didn't mischaracterize anybody's legislative intent either.
I think what he was referring to was the legislature. 30 senators lined up, and 28 of them quickly went back. So anyway,
we also knew who was the best for it in large ways, and boy, we had good representation too.
Thank you.
So thank you, Senator Collmore. So with that, I'm going to jump to Beth. Beth, I know you brought very early to us the issues of the OPEB. You've been trying to bring that to us for years. And so just some reflections on where we are and your feeling about it. And Chris did, as you saw, I think you were here when he did the V-sters, and he did the same thing for the V-sters. So, and for the, VTA is part of V-sters. So, okay. So Beth,
Yes. So again, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. Last week I went through, I think it was about a 50-page PowerPoint. For me, that's not as many as I usually do. So we're making.
we know.
I was coming back to answer some questions on that. I will talk a little bit about, I didn't hear all of what Chris said in terms of, and I've looked at the materials that are out on the webpage. I'm still trying to digest some of it. The boxes and where they are, you have an ADEC and 24 and ADEC and 25. So trying to put that into to some structure with us. But the way I understood this is that about $1.7 billion, 1 billion.7 of these unfunded liability savings are in the OPEBs, the teacher and the state healthcare systems. And that was a reduction of about 1.7 billion. You are correct. As I told folks earlier in a different testimony, that we've been at this for, I think we submitted a written proposal in 18, 19, 20, 2 and 21 and 22. So we're very pleased that this this is moving. I would also say that a lot of the impetus for this moving forward was frankly from the Appropriations Committee and Senator Kitchell and her idea around the Ed Fund. And I think that was very instrumental in us moving us forward. I remember that as being literally the last item on the conference committee on appropriations last year, trying to get to solution on that. And I was in the corner saying, yes, yes, yes. But it turned out to be maybe. But this year we got to go. And I want to say thank you very much for Senator Kitchell and for you, Senator White, and what you've done. I think that you added a ton of credibility to this, your knowledge and working with the employee groups. I think one of the things that you mentioned very upfront, getting to Senator Colomer's comments about disparate groups, very strong intent on your part to have as wide a conversation and bringing in the employee groups. And I know that Senate GovOps in particular had a very long, good conversation about how to structure that and get the most employee representation as possible. I agree with that. When we had the initial conversations with these folks, we literally had 4 meetings a week, 2 with the NEA and 2 with the VSEA and the troopers combined. And while we didn't get to go there, I think some of the materials that we sent you were very helpful in the discussion and the points of further review. But that conversation with folks is extraordinarily important. Senator Colomer, you mentioned disparate groups, and I thought about a project and volunteering. Several years ago, I was not in a committee room when they were talking about clean water, and apparently I was volunteered to do the project. And
you were. I remember that.
Yep. And since one of the environmentalists advocates has told me who the senator who did volunteer me, so I do have that information. I won't say it publicly, but we ended up with either 23 or 26. It's a little bit back in my memory of stakeholder meetings with environmental advocates, with nonprofits, with municipalities, with wastewater treatment experts, with farmers, with the chamber. And that involved 1,000 different people. And in the process, we got to a good result. And again, Senator, I would say the same thing happened here. You had a very animated discussions across the board. And I think that was extraordinarily helpful. And I also want to thank the employee groups for their involvement in terms of their willingness to put more dollars in terms of employee contributions and some changes to the COLA, the cost of living allowances for future retirees. And as was pointed out earlier, these are not recommendations that would impact current retirees. And I'm very glad to hear that was one of the items in our report to you last January. It's been a year. It was literally January 15th that I submitted that proposal. And I believe we started those weekly meetings with the employee group sometime around the mid to end of October. So it's been well over a year that we've had these discussions. And I'm pleased with the results overall. I would say that we hit, as I say, 1.7 billion of your 2 billion is from the OPEBs. We had original target of about 604 million on the unfunded liabilities. We came up with, you folks, I shouldn't say, we came up with about 290 million, 290.1 if I, off the old estimates. I'll have to take a look at any revisions that might have been made by joint fiscal. So about 50% of that. And there was one-time revenue, and that does not include ongoing revenue, which will be part of the equation going forth. So I think there was progress. I do want to be careful that to say that this is not something that you can take your eyes off and say, you know, it's going to be perfect and run normally for the next 30, 40 years or whatever it might be. Pensions are subject to the economics. No one anticipated a great recession. And if you're an economist that said that you knew that was going to be happening, I'm probably thinking that it was in the rearview mirror. But the state system was 100.8% funded, not 108, but 100.8, $11 million surplus as of 2007. And we took a big hit, over 30% impact on our investments in our systems. So we have to be vigilant, is what I'm trying to say. We need to continue to look at the information as we move forward. Look under the hood. One of the things that I did mention in my testimony at many times with respect to both systems, but particularly the teachers system, is that almost half, just under half actually, of the losses, actuarial losses between 2011 and 2021. And I used 11 because that's the first year you're pretty much out of the gains and losses from the recession. But 50% of those were related to teacher turnover and teacher retirements. And I can't help but, whether it's a causal link, but the correlation between, that's when a lot of the discussion started happening about teacher-student ratios, about reorganizing, and those have had stresses on teachers. COVID has certainly had a stress on teachers. And when you start having these conversations and putting teachers under the microscope, you end up having workforce decisions that are being made that are frankly detrimental to the students and have created additional stresses on the retirement system. What I would say is those are things under the hood that we can control, and take a look and have a good discussion about what's happening in the workforce, what's happening in the decision-making at the local level and at the state level, and what can we do to rectify those or mitigate some of the adverse impacts. We're not going to be able to change, we're a small state, we're not going to be able to change the rate of inflation. We're not, certainly a lot of discussion about it going on right now. We're not going to be able to change the world economy or resolve the supply shortages that we're having during this COVID pandemic. But we can make decisions about how we handle the underlying demographics and the underlying conditions that are impacting our retirement systems. And so I would recommend that we take a look going forward at that and make sure that we're doing all we can to mitigate those adverse attributes or impacts on the system. I think teachers do a great job. I think state employees do a great job. We've got a great team of people that have really stepped up to the plate during COVID. They stepped up here or two in employee contributions. And we need to honor that with as much due diligence as we can moving forward. I'd be happy to answer any specific questions.
So I am going to say that one thing, this has nothing to do with the larger question about our workforce shortages in either teachers or state employees, but in terms of not ignoring this, the pension issue as we have been for a while. I mean, not ignoring it necessarily, but not keeping a focused eye on it. The pro tem has named Senators Kitchell and Parent and Hooker to the Pension Oversight Committee. And I think that that's going to have a huge positive impact going forward so that we don't find ourselves in this situation again, hopefully. So I don't know if the House members have been appointed yet or not, but the Senate members have been. So
There was some reporting requirements, and Ashlyn Doyon on our office is probably on the call, that we required, I think it was in, I don't remember the date, but we did not have a committee at that point, but we sent the
Right.
requisite materials to the speaker and the Senate Pro Tem.
I did see that. Does anybody have questions for Beth? But
No.
I just have to thank you and Senator Kitchell for continually bringing up the OPEB issue, because that was, I think that nobody on, I think that there wasn't a well enough recognition that that was a huge issue before us, almost a bigger issue than the pensions themselves. And so I thank you for constantly bringing that up.
Well, again, I think it's been a good conversation with your committee, with Senator Kitchell and her committee. I think that we got a positive result out of this. We're thrilled that was part of the solution moving forward. It's so important. What we did not want to happen is 10 years down the road, you can't, you've got increases in retirees, and as a consequence, you're now left with how are we going to handle this? And such as, well, no new retirees should get health care. That, to me, when we talk about health care being a human right, and then we'd make those kind of decisions or even have those kind of conversations, it's appalling to me. We're not there because you took action. Would I've liked to have taken it in 18 or 19? Sure, but we did it. And I think that we're at a point now that we can move forward together and get it done, so to speak. The committee did ask, or your task force did ask that we take a look at a couple of things. One was that longevity incentive, and we're certainly looking at that, as well as a possibility of a group G for correction. And I'm starting on that one right away. We've already had some discussions with the actuary and some questions. And I think I don't know what the answer is going to be and how affordable the answer is, but we're not waiting to April 15th.
Right.
My expectation is that we'll be able to get this done over the next month and a half or so. And so we'll have something for you, hopefully at the end of February on that. Whether it's everything everybody wants or not, we're going to try to do that. And then we're also focusing on the longevity issue as well. And we did see back in 2019, when we took a good look at, we had a work group to take a look at our pensions. And I know, Senator, you were involved in that as well. We took a look at different, the retirement incentive versus the retirement disincentive, I would call this, keeping folks around for a longer period of time. We have some good understanding of the dynamics, but the details, the numbers matter. So we'll get into that and get something to you on that as soon as possible as well. And when we did our report in January, it was the most painful thing I've had to do as a treasurer, to put that out there. I feel very strongly that we need to have retirement security for this generation, the next one after that, and so on. This was tough. But knowing that we did something with it is important to me. The last thing I want to do is work on a report and then put it on a shelf. And, we have not done that with this. We haven't done it with the housing report we've done, the clean water. This one was by far the most difficult thing. As I said, literally the most difficult thing I've had to do as a treasurer. But I'm glad we got a compromise out of it and something that's workable moving forward. So again, thank you for your good work.
Thank you. Senator Clarkson?
Beth, my father used to always say that no one changes until they hurt enough. And so you may have been, raising this red flag for, close to 5 years. But I think it took us, sadly, a long time to hurt enough to actually realize what some of the consequences were going to be for us to actually go into high gear. We also always know that a prophet's without honor in her own country. And you were our prophet on this and carried that tough water and took a lot of heat for it. And we I guess we have to really say thank you to you for that, because one's vilified in the immediate aftermath of that. But the work that's come out of that, which you called the question on it. And I think we honor you for calling the question, which we didn't necessarily do at the time, but I think we're all doing it now. And so thank you for keeping your eye on the health of Vermont and Vermonters.
Well, thank you. And you folks have your eye on it as well. When I talk to the rating agencies, and this is going to be good news for the rating agencies, by the way.
Big time.
But when we talk to them, we get good points, a lot of points for our financial management, being proactive, our consensus revenue process. And when we do have, I'm going to knock on wood as I say it, things like the Great Recession, we responded quickly. We responded quickly to COVID, that this state has done some very good work, our management. This is because we have that type of partnership. And I'm not naive. We have our differences. You know, I've seen some political ups and downs with different projects as we move forward, but we get it done in this state. And it's very different than, I keep saying this because it never seems to get better. It's very different than what you see in Washington and the polarization that we see there. And we may have differences, but somehow we get it all done in this state. I don't know what we need to do to bottle that up and send it to DC and to other places, but I'm real proud to be a Vermonter, and I'm real proud to be working with you folks on some very constructive things. So thank you for your professionalism as we move through this, the entire committee, and thank you to the General Assembly.
Senator Ram Hinsdale, did you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Treasurer, have you seen other states or institutions that codify a retirement agreement at the time of hire and then may make changes for those coming into the system, but tend to, treat that initial agreement as a contract or codification moving forward?
Well, that's going to vary from state to state. I think that the task force had a legal opinion and I have not seen that document. A review by a consultant, I believe it was Ice Miller. We used the same consultant back in 2009 when we had the retirement process back then. And I think that what they saw was some variations, and a lot depends on state law, not just federal law. Recently, there's some interesting articles about the interpretations and the evolution of those interpretations, particularly around COLA. And they're there. I'd be happy to send material on that. But the reality is we don't need to get to that point in this state. We've not been in a point where we've had to have litigation around this because people work together. And we do not have the same type of antagonistic approaches that I've seen in some of our New England neighbors, for instance, that have had protracted court cases around benefits. And sometimes they've been upheld, sometimes they've not, more upheld recently than the other direction. But we don't need to go there. And that's not constructive toward the type of engagement that this state has had with its employee groups as well as with its citizens. And again, the good points that we get are because we don't do that. We don't get into litigation. We work together to find a solution. In 2009, 10, and 11, when we made significant changes, we did not have one legal challenge because we sat down with the NEA, we sat down with the VSEA, we sat down with the troopers, and that's what happened again this time.
If you could send those documents and the report or the legal opinion, that'd be
Well,
really
I don't have the most recent one. That was the task force. On our webpage is the 2009 study. But as you might imagine, that's a little dated now. There's been a few, I would suggest probably some more court precedents since that time. But the task force did receive a report from Ice Miller. We were not privy to that. And I'm looking at the numbers. And I don't want to get into court cases because we don't want to go there. We want to be above that and working together and not have to see you in court kind of thing.
Any other questions for Beth. Chris.
I just wanted to take a minute of personal privilege when the treasurer was here, Madam Chair, just to thank her once again and her staff for all of their work and support throughout this process. I have to give the treasurer, as a member of the VSERS system, and you know, I appreciate the fact that she's a steward and a fiduciary for my own retirement future. But the fact that this is such a difficult issue, and she really grabbed the third rail with both hands and ended up in an end result that I think is going to be a whole lot better for retirement security and for the state of Vermont in the future. So I wanted to say, as a legislative employee, on the record for whoever's watching, that we really appreciate the partnership of her office, of her team, and of her. And to anybody on Wall Street who's watching, I could not agree more about the treasurer's characterization of how well we work together. So I really, really want to thank and express my gratitude and my appreciation for her leadership.
So Chris, right back at you. You know, we appreciate all the good work that you and Joint Fiscal and folks. I did run into Steve Klein a couple of times post retirement, and had some good things to say as well. It goes both ways. The only difference I have with you is stop calling me treasurer and just call me Beth, please. And beyond that, we do great work together, and look forward to doing that on other initiatives. Hopefully ones that are less painful. You know, we really want to work on some issues around housing and homelessness and those types of agendas as well. My bottom line is that everything the Treasurer's Office does should be about creating an opportunity for everyone in this state to have an opportunity for financial well-being. And we're going to continue on that agenda in any way that we can work with you folks. We're all in. And so thank you very much. And thank you, Chris, for your work and a growing partnership. So thank you.
Chris, I have no doubt whatsoever that everyone on Wall Street is watching this committee meeting very intensely.
Now, I hear they ended session early today just to listen in on this final piece here.
Well, you would be surprised when we're talking to the rating agencies and they read the newspapers. They read the clippings from all over the state, and they're very knowledgeable. And I won't mention any particular news outlets, but they do pay attention to what's happening. And again, it's mostly really good points for us in the process.
So if anybody is watching, we also will say that we're very lucky to have Chris here to help us through this.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just work here.
So are there any more questions here for Chris or Beth? And I will say that I know that with 20, I think Steve Howard said the other day, 20,000 people who are affected by this, 180 legislators, and then 620,000 Vermonters. There are probably at least that many suggested changes in the solution here, and that people would rather have seen this than this, or and I would suggest that we probably don't want to invite all of those 620,000 people, and in addition to everybody else, to come up with their particular solution, because the solution the package that came to us from the union members themselves, and with the support of the legislators who were on the task force. So I just want to point that out, that we could have had many, many, many different solutions probably, but this is what we came up with, or what they came up with, I should say. So
Senator, we endorse the package, and we urge you to enact it in this year's legislation.
Thank you. Yes, Gail, Gail just reminded me that we were going to have Mike come in to us, because remember, we are having on Tuesday night, we are having a public hearing from 5:30 till 7, is it? I think it's 5:30 till 7.
It says
7:30.
7:30 in Gail's email, but that's if it lasts that long, I guess.
Yeah, and I might at 7 o'clock, if we're still going, ask Anthony to just do it, because I have a pretty important select board meeting that I have to go to at 7 o'clock, and it'll take me 3 minutes to get there.
Well, then why don't we make sure it ends at 7? I mean,
Well,
if it-
if we put out that it was gonna go till 7:30, if enough people show up, we should honor that.
oh, I thought it was 5:30 to 7. Okay.
No, Keisha just said that it says 7:30 in the press release, and that's fine. So,
Truth in advertising.
I have a question for maybe Mike or Gail. Because as it turns out, I have a medical appointment on Tuesday afternoon. I don't think I'm going to be late for the committee for the public hearing, but I think I'm going to get there just in the nick of time. And I don't know how these public hearings work on Zoom. I mean, if I sign in, we're just scattered all around the whole page? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, what
Yeah,
is
Gail,
going
do you
to
wanna-
happen, Senator Polina, based
Yep.
on the one that we did in November for pensions, is that we have breakout rooms. And we keep people in different areas and then promote them so that there's only one speaker at a time addressing the committee.
So the committee
But
is,
suppose, I'm just saying suppose, I don't think it's gonna happen, but suppose I got there like at 5:45 instead of 5:30. Would you would let me in and I would just
Yeah.
be in this crowd? Or
Oh,
like,
if you
where
were-
do I end up?
no. Anthony, only the committee will be on the screen.
Right.
And then the way it works with somebody will say, next on
Oh,
the,
they'll pop up.
then that person will pop
Okay.
up, and
All right, I
all
got
those
it.
people won't be on the screen.
Okay,
Which reminds me, you will be getting specific special Zoom links that will go directly to you, and those are your personal links. And that's what allows you to be part of the active Zoom portion.
okay.
And then as speakers come up, they will be promoted into the active Zoom meeting.
Got it. And you do all that?
yes, that's
I have
magic.
help. This is pretty, it's a pretty heavy, labor intensive, staff intensive event.
I
So
bet.
me and the others.
So
Thanks.
speaking of staff, and committee, did we reach out to House Gov Ops? Are they joining us or not?
We
No,
did
they're
reach out
not.
to them.
I got a note back from them and they thanked us, but they have their own public hearing on Thursday night and didn't feel for reapportionment and didn't feel that they wanted to do 2 public hearings in a
Got it.
week.
Got it.
The only issue I think that for me remains is Mike Ferrant was going to join us to show me, or maybe I don't need to be involved, the timing issue. There's a way for it to be up on the screen, so I don't have to keep saying, you have 30 seconds left. You know what I mean? I think it'll just count it back by itself.
You blow your whistle, I think.
Well, I'll make sure I put my helmet on too.
I have just pinged Mike to see if he can join us to
Okay.
share some details with us.
And I think that when we did it before, we all entered the meeting at half an hour before.
Yep.
So all this could get worked out and we're all fine. And Anthony, if you're not back by then, you would just come in later, but you don't need to. If Brian is going to be doing the timing
Correct.
and yeah.
Sure.
It'll all
No,
work out.
I think it'll be fine. I was just visualizing it weirdly.
It will resemble a committee meeting in many ways.
Yeah.
Right.
It'll be the committee, and then if it was in the State House, you would have one person come up and sit at the table and
Right.
have their testimony, and then the next person would come up. That's all that's gonna happen.
And just as usual, we're there to listen.
Right.
Madam Chair, as much as I like listening to this,
I'm sorry.
no, do you
Madam
need me for
Treasurer.
anything else? Are there any additional questions?
Nope.
I
Okay.
don't see any.
Yeah, and if you do have, later on and you have questions, just give us a call and we'll be happy to come back or answer any questions that you might have. And again, thank you very much for all your good work and enjoy your weekend.
Thanks, you
Beth,
too.
if you can show us the two pictures of the baseball, I'm really curious about that.
Oh, okay.
Just really quickly.
So I have kind of an eclectic taste. I have Van Gogh prints all over the place, as well as over the back there, I have the best Red Sox outfield ever, Jim Rice, Fred Lynn, and Dwight Evans, autographed.
Ah,
And
okay.
then I have Jim Lomberg autograph over here. And then I have to have an autograph of somebody named Steve Pierce, P-E-A-R-C-E. So I have that over there as well. So a little bit of Red Sox, and those are Dwight Evans, and I forgot the other autograph baseball, but it's kind of
All right.
fading on.
Is
So
Steve-
I like
you.
sports and I like
Thank
Van
you.
Gogh, so it's an odd combination.
That's
Oh,
okay.
I'm sure
Thank
he
you.
liked some sports too.
Okay.
Beth, is Steve your son?
No, Steve Pierce
No.
is no, Steve Pierce was an MVP in the World Series a few years ago, and I just the name obviously. No, if my son played professional baseball, we won't say anything else. But he's not a sports fan actually at all. And I have to say, just go Notre Dame. That's all I ever say. So hey, but that's my favorite team.
Did
I
you
think
go?
I think Steve Pierce was in the New York Times crossword puzzle a couple weeks ago.
Oh, really? Really?
I think so. As I remember.
Thank you, Beth.
Hey, thank you. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thanks, you too. And Chris, you can stay with us. I don't know if you want to hear about the public hearing or if there are no other questions for Chris, I'm sure he has things he would like to
I
do.
will be, thank you, Madam Chair. I will be watching on YouTube on Tuesday. So
Thanks a lot, Chris.
no problem. Please reach out if you have any questions or if I can further explain anything. And otherwise, have a nice weekend. Stay warm.
Thanks.
You too. Thank you. Yep.
Stay
Bye.
warm.
All right,
So,
did you
Madam
hear
Chair,
back?
Since we're just talking about the logistics of the meeting, I think it's
Yeah.
just going to be a briefing. So I am going to take us off YouTube Live.
Yeah,
Okay.
Great.